Hey guys, Min here from the MHKDesigns Etsy shop again. I wanted to show you how you can do a triple time stamping technique using digital images. It's really pretty simple. This is my sample that I have completed for you where I've used dies that layer right on top of each other so you don't get as much effect as if you would if you die cut using ones that were further apart. So I'm going to show you what that will look like. On my sample, this floral image is from the Blossoming digital stamp set, and the sentiment is from the Pansy Corner digital stamp set from MHK Designs. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is print out 3 of the image that you want to use. And I decided to use the larger flower from the Blossoming stamp set. And I've already colored them. I colored them with Spectrum Noir, and obviously I colored them exactly the same. This is really easy to do if you do one color on all 3 and then you go to the next color, do all 3. So that's kind of what I do when I'm doing multiple colorings of the same image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these and I'm going to die cut each one with a different size stitched rectangle die from the Stamps of Life. Okay, nesting dies work great for this. You could do it by hand, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult to cut by hand, so I would definitely suggest getting some nesting dies. You could do other shapes other than rectangles, but I decided to keep it the same shape as I had on my sample card. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to cut some layering pieces, and I did these backwards, that are just a little bit bigger than the dies that you're going to be cutting out with, okay? So let's go ahead and get all this out of the way, and we're going to start by die cutting our largest image out of our largest rectangle. And let me get that on the screen for you. Oh, and let me turn it around so that I can use my handle. Sorry about that. So some tips for your digital stamping when you're doing triple time stamping: make sure that your images are all printed in the same alignment. If they're not printed in the same alignment, you might end up having some difficulties, especially if you do one of the background stamps like I did. Okay. And like I said before, with my large flower image, and I'm sorry I'm sniffing, I'm having some allergy issues, make sure that you color it the same, or it would also be kind of cool, you could do it kind of like spotlighting, and you could keep some of it black and white and then keep some of it color. So here's my first one die cut out, okay? You see that nice stitching? I'm not sure if you can quite see it. Let me get that closer. I love the stitching detail that stitch dies gives. It just adds a little bit of extra finish. And I also made the flower big enough to where it kind of goes off of either side. And if I wanted to, I could have had it go down further so that the stem went off the side, but I like it like this. So there's our largest one. And let's do, since I've got an extended pad on here, I can go ahead and do my other 2 at the same time. And the thing with this is, if you're doing rectangles, it's easy to kind of quote-unquote layer them inside. So I've got that one down, and I'll scoot this through so you can see where I'm going to do my smaller one too. So I've got that, and I'm just going to keep them right in the center. But if you didn't want them in the center, you could do some other things where you used even smaller dies from the same set and did some layered triple time stamping, which is also something that's popular. So just kind of play around with it, figure out what you think you want to do. And because they're digital images, it's so much easier to do than trying to stamp everything and get it exactly how you want it. I've done lots of triple time stamping where I'm just like, oh, this did not turn out right. This is not what I wanted. But with Digis, it's easy because the image is not going to smear when you die cut. It's not going to move. So Digis are great for this technique. Okay, let me get this out of the way and bring this back so that I can show you our layered pieces all together. Here's my large one, and here's my next one. I just really love that stitching. I think it looks so nice. And then here's my smallest one. Let me do these side by side. So you can see how it's kind of basically zooming in on the image is kind of how I think of it. Like, here's the image, and then we're magnifying and magnifying. Even though it's the same size, it looks like it's kind of been magnetized. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my layering pieces, and I'm going to layer these on them. And so this is just going to create a nice little border. You can't really see because I've got this black border, so I'm going to move this out of the way so you can see what these look like as I layer them together. Now when you're adding your panels together, you can see my coloring through. You can do one of two things. You can use the same adhesive and you can layer it just right on top of each other. Or you can do like I did in my sample, and you can use dimensional foam. Okay, see how I have dimension going on there? That kind of helped you see more of the image on the side. But for this one, I think I'm just going to keep layering them on top of each other. But the secret is get all of these panels layered together on their matting before you go and layer them on top of each other. Because if you don't do that, you won't be able to see if you're lining it up correctly, okay? So I've got those two done, and now I just need to do my smallest one here. Oh, sorry again for the sniffling. Let's get that one on there. Okay, so now I've got all of these layered together, and like I said, I think I'm just going to layer them on top of each other. So all you're going to do is you're going to go until you see where it kind of lines up. So you see how that lines up? And I didn't get it exactly perfect, but with the dies that doesn't really matter because it's still at least cut nicely. Okay, oops. That was almost a little bit of a crisis. So I've got these lined up, and I'm just going to layer them right on top of each other. Now before I add my final one, I want to add a sentiment to this one. So I've got another sentiment from the Pansy Corner digital stamp set, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and I'm going to layer it over this so that it's on top. But because it's on vellum, you can still kind of see the flower through. I think I'm actually going to have it come further down here. So when I do vellum, I adhere it one of two ways. I either use vellum adhesive, which Tombow has a really good vellum adhesive that I enjoy, or I staple it. You can also go ahead and, I guess I should have said there's a third way. The third way is I take it and I fold it over the sides of my panel. Okay, I'm going to move this out of the way just for right now. Then I turn this over, and you can just use regular, any type of adhesive. Like I've said in other videos, I like Tombow. And just fold that over. And this one's a little bit trickier because it's smaller, so I usually go down that way, and I get it on the paper and on the vellum. Okay. And there I have my vellum attached to my smallest piece, and it's ready to be adhered onto here. And so this one, I'm going to, again, kind of line it up where I think it needs to go. And see, I like how this ended up. It wasn't perfectly centered, but it still looks like I kind of meant it to be that way. And so if you are more of a stickler, what you can do is you can die cut everything out on top of each other with the largest, then do the next two with the second, then do the last one with this. But I think each time when you get it to look just a little bit different, it adds a little bit of interest to your card. So it's up to you. I like to try and not be too persnickety. That's kind of an old-fashioned saying, but I don't really like to be too persnickety when I'm doing my crafting because it's supposed to be my escape from having to be an organized adult. So that's just kind of my feeling. And so I'm going to put that right down on there. And I think I might have gotten it off just a little bit down here, so I'm going to lift it up real quick. Like I said in another video, this is why I like the Tombow Mono adhesive. If it's not exactly right, it's okay. I can move it. And if I need to take adhesive off, I can just rub it off. So there we go. That's where it needed to be. So there's my completed panel of the triple time stamping with a digital image from the Blossoming digital stamp set from MHK Designs and a sentiment from the Pansy Corner digital stamp set from MHK Designs. And I thought that this would look good just like on my sample card on a craft mat or a craft card base. And so I'm going to add this to my card base with some adhesive. And then after you get to this point, you can add your embellishments. You can add glitter to the edges, which I did on my sample, which I'll pull back over onto the full screen here in just a second. So once it's on the card base is when I do my embellishing. So here I colored some of my flowers in beforehand, but then I added some glitter to the centers. I added some blue glitter to the edges. It's gold glitter in the centers of the flowers. And then I added some rhinestones just kind of spraying across the top of the card. And honestly, now that I'm looking at this, I think this looks perfectly fine without any further embellishment. And this card right here would be perfect to mail because I didn't use the dimension like I did on this one. And so this card, easy peasy, ready to mail, even if you wanted to mail it overseas. So that is how I do my triple time stamping with digital images from MHK Designs. Leave me some comments below if you have any questions, and I will add all the products and links to the MHK Designs Etsy shop and other places down below. If you do this technique this month, go ahead and add your card to the House of Cards challenge as well, because we're asking you to use lots of layers. And until next time, hugs and happy stamping, friends.